I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. What a hit!
Back of the net.
Hello and welcome to the Not a Pundit podcast. I am Killian and I'm delighted to be joined as ever by Conor Glennon.
How are you going, man? How are you getting on?
I'm good. I have been amazed by the phoenix rising from the ashes that has been Sean Dyche's Everton. It's like when the going gets tough, the Dyche gets going. 10 points deducted, and they just seem to have hit a brand new level. I can't be the only one that's been amazed by this.
Absolutely not. No, it seems to be it's really clicking for them over there, and it's good to see. You know, in the wake of what's gone on there with the points reduction or deduction, should I say? It's really great to see. And I mean, I don't want to be that Monday morning quarterback, but I think it was definitely one of those ones where, you know, you look at someone like Sean Dyche, and I think he's someone that likes to be under siege at all times. You know.
Oh, 100%. Like. It was around the 17th of November that they got the points deduction, which for those that had their head in the sand for the past couple of months, they had basically a financial fair play breach, and off the back of that, they got a 10-point deduction, which one would fear for the existence of Man City, considering they have 115 of them. But since then,
well, I mean, they're going to be dwindling in the championship at this point.
But since then, on the 17th, they were lost 3-0 to Man United, beat Nottingham Forest 1-0, beat Newcastle 3-0, and beat Chelsea 2-0. Like, that's unbelievable. Just when you think that they should be kind of down and out, regarding themselves as relegated, nominated, or whatever, they just have kicked it up a gear, and Dyche seems to have really gotten the best out of Decore. Even is it Dwight McNeil's scoring now? I think this season actually for Everton needs to be studied, because if they manage to pull this off, this would be the greatest survival since probably Sunderland under Gus Poyet.
Or Eddie Howe at Bournemouth when they had their issues. But I mean, you look at Everton and you know, everyone's going, oh, you know, De Zerbi's doing an amazing job with Brighton in 8th. Had this deduction not happened, like, Everton are in 9th or 10th, which is unbelievable, you know. And one thing I've been meaning to ask you this: if you're Dyche, would you rather go into the season, like, you know, when you go into administration, say before the season, you go into it, you're like 17 points deducted, you're starting minus 17. Would you rather start from minus 17, or say in this example they're 10 points in November they found out, so they've kind of had a chance to attack the league, and then it's a bit of a hit going, oh Jesus, we're back down the bottom? Or so would you take it in season or pre-season if you had to take the deduction?
I would take it in season. I think pre-season,
I'm the same.
Yeah, I think pre-season will just give you like a bad air around the club. Plus, it would change who you could sign. Because I think
absolutely
a lot would go, do you know what? No, they're already relegation fodder. Whereas now they were doing pretty good. I think they were mid-table form up until this, and now it's like they've gotten a new hire, because it's like that new fresh impetus to kind of going, we have to prove ourselves here. Like, let's get going.
Oh, it's them against the world going. Like, I mean, there's no bigger motivation for players to be icons or cult heroes in situations like this. And the other thing, if you look at it from a sheer finance point of view, all of them that don't have release clauses in their contract for relegation know if they go down, their wages are getting 50% capped. And like, at best, they're probably getting 50% of their old wages. So between that, the two of those things, and having Sean Dyche in there, they keep playing ball like this, they will not struggle.
No, and like, if you look at their, like, Dyche's record now for this season with them, 16 games, 7 wins, 2 draws, and 7 losses. It's not good, but god damn, it's not bad.
But when you look at the spread for Everton this year, so it's like They're scoring 1.25 goals a game. They're conceding 1.25 goals a game. Not great. Points average of 1.44. But then you look at them last year, and their goals scored are 0.89, conceded 1.5, and average points per game is 0.95. So they're, compared to last year, they're in a much better position. It seems like things are working. Yeah, we could just be buying into the hype of a good momentum run, but I really think they're positioned well. And if there's one thing in sports that can change everything, it's momentum.
Oh, 100%. And like when you look at who they have coming up, like let's not forget their EFL Cup run has given them something to really like be positive about. So they have Burnley next in the league, the quarterfinal for the EFL Cup. Then they have Tottenham, City, Wolves. And that brings them to the end of the year, and then they get like a 2-week break.
So Burnley, that's a 6-pointer for them. Like that's huge.
Yeah. But based on current form, they could get points at Tottenham. They could scrape at least a point from City, and on current form, flip of a coin if who will win by 3-0 against Wolves. Like it could kind of go either way. Like I think it's really positive way to end the year. And the other thing that could bring another fresh bit of positivity for them, especially at this time, is they could have new ownership by January.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I mean, you could look at this objectively as an Everton fan and go, it's a really terrible time at the club. You're just off relegation. But at the same time, like you said, they're in the quarterfinals of the EFL. If they get a good result in that, they're into the semis, which is a huge boost for the fans. They got new owners in January. For all we know, that 10 points could go down to like 5 points or 6 points on appeal. So I wouldn't be as panic stations as I thought I would have been if I was an Everton fan when that November date happened and the 10 points came in, because again, I don't want to buy too much into the hype, but it really seems like it's like with Ange Ball, like you could see it just really clicked. Or even with Villa, like you look at the way they are this season compared to last season. It's just we talked about this last week in terms of coaches needing to have a framework and a format, and it seems like that is finally coming together at Everton.
Well, see, that's the beauty of why I'm kind of buying into this hype. Same with Ange Ball. It's a hype you can buy into because Ange Ball is high risk, high reward. So it's going to be amazing and entertaining. And when it goes well, it'll go really, really well. When it goes wrong, it'll go really wrong. That's fine. But what we're seeing now with Everton is a pure Dyche system. In the sense of what he has done at Burnley, which is all we can really say, because that's the only proper time we've got to see him. Because like if you consider the last couple of games, like Chelsea play very good football under Pochettino. They're passing the ball, they're very technical, and they thoroughly bet them. Like I know Chelsea have their issues and all, but you're not going to consider Dwight McNeil and Sterling to be on the same level, and yet
God no,
one of them scored and the other one didn't. So like the fact that they're winning these games against different systems and like they're actually adjusting to it. Like this is the first time they've won 3 games on the bounce since Carlo Ancelotti. Like, which
is mad. And the fact that they ever had Carlo Ancelotti is also just absolute madness. But that aside, that's a very interesting stat.
Up until Dyche, the previous 3 managers of Everton have managed Chelsea: Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez, Frank Lampard.
That's funny. That's very funny. When you look at Chelsea though, it's the same thing that they'll face against Spurs. Like Newcastle, yeah, we got absolutely battered by Spurs, but Spurs didn't play incredible football. It's not like they're playing some Man City Pep football. They're beatable, and they're also in their own way struggling for form of late. That was That was their 4th game. That was going to be their 4th game losing at home if they hadn't beaten us. In a row.
Yeah, like one thing I'm very, very excited to see with this team now is like, can they beat teams that are in form? So Newcastle had been doing very good, but they're having their little kind of mid-season wane, which I think Champions League is weighing heavily on you guys.
Yeah, hugely. And like, I mean, it's a squad issue as well.
Yeah. And with Tottenham, I think they're in that kind of ground of people are starting to figure out the system, so they're just having to make their first readjustment, which is fine. Chelsea aren't doing good, but they're not doing terrible. So,
I mean, if you believe the media, it's panic stations for Chelsea, but I don't agree, and I don't think you do either.
With Bowley, I just don't know. He's such an unknown entity. Like, he was so vocal initially, and now he seems to have taken a step back from doing that, so nobody can kind of get a gauge of him. So, like, you have to judge him by his actions, and his actions is he fires managers quickly, or without real just cause. So, could he get a little bit scared? Like, I know some Chelsea fans are worried about it, and they would be devastated to lose Poch, because as we said last week, they're not going to get any better. There is no better manager out there.
No.
They just need to wait for it to click. But like, where I think Everton should take real heart is there are teams worse than them, but the teams that are better than them can be bet on their day, and Chelsea has proven that.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, even with City's dominance of last season, and they're playing good football. I know Haaland's got some sort of a knock at the moment. It doesn't seem too long term, but and I don't want to sound like Gary Neville now saying the Premier League's the best league in the world, but it is really, this year. It does feel like anyone, I won't say can beat anyone, but anyone can get a result against anyone.
Yeah, well, I think that's always kind of been the beauty of the Premier League, is like, even look at Sunderland. Sunderland, when we were perennial relegation candidates, in them same years. So say, I actually have it up on my board here. 14th of the 11th, 2010, Sunderland bet Chelsea 3-0 at Stamford Bridge, ending, I think, I'm not sure if it was that game, but we ended Jose Mourinho's
the home reign of like 10 years or whatever. Yeah,
where from his first spell at Chelsea until he returned to Chelsea. So like, there's always been this kind of, in a way that I don't think La Liga has, in a way that Bundesliga, it feels a lot more fluky than when it happens in the Premier League.
Yeah,
the Premier League, it's that kind of clash of the styles, and if you get the tactics wrong on that day, well, then you were just outmatched on the day. Whereas I think with Bundesliga, it's kind of nearly like, oh, well, Neuer was sick, so
or Kane had an off day or whatever. Yeah.
There's always like an excuse to it. And I remember Mourinho, when Sunderland did end them, he went ape at his players, and it wasn't because they lost; it was because they were beaten, deservedly so.
Well, that's the thing, and it's you know, one thing I like about the likes of a Mourinho or a Diego Simeone, or I suppose any manager of that ilk that's more passionate than most managers, when they lose, if they're beaten by good football, at least publicly they don't shame the team. But I think in games like that, where I think Mourinho would have been annoyed regardless of who ended that, but the fact that he would deem Sunderland not on his level, I think that's what kind of bled into that reaction more so than anything.
Oh yeah. But back to Everton, who are our current Phoenix, and Bournemouth in the same token, considering we were kind of putting Iriola up for potential.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's out of the woods, but I think he's currently proving us wrong. But look at Everton now. They're 17th, so they're not out of the woods.
By any stretch, but it's looking good though.
Yeah. Do you think they can stay up?
I think they can. Now look, I think like every other team, they need injuries to go their way. They need a couple of big days out at the kind of bigger teams. Not that Everton aren't. I personally love Everton as a football team. I always have. But I think they need to go in there with the belief that they can beat anyone at any stadium at any time. And that's the only way they'll stay up.
Like, they're currently 4 points clear of Luton in 18th, which is good, because I think between Luton, Burnley and Sheffield, they will pick up points, but I think it'll be slow. I'm a Sunderland fan, so I've seen us go from being bottom on Christmas Day to surviving. So I know that teams can get this little boost, and it can save them. So that's the kind of defense for Burnley or Luton. Really, I don't think Sheffield.
You look at that bottom four of Luton, Burnley, Palace, Sheffield United. I mean, I'd be absolutely amazed if Luton stay up. Sheffield United, I think, are a goner. I think Palace, it's between kind of Palace and Forest. You know what I mean? As to who that is, I don't see it. Like, even the bottom from 16th down to 20th, I just don't see Everton being worse than those teams. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a major thing for them, is the fact that there is much worse teams than them. But I'm just looking here from the Sun in the UK. So a supercomputer from betting expert supercomputer called Betsy simulated this current season 100,000 times apparently, and what they believe is the most likely table will have Everton in 14th on 43 points.
So exactly where they are right now. Okay, interesting.
And then Burnley, Luton, and Sheffield to go down. But they're predicting Arsenal to win by 1 point, which I don't know.
Interesting.
And Aston Villa to get fourth.
Well, to be honest with you, like, I don't think Newcastle are getting top four this year. Injury problems and just other issues on the go. But if we're not to get
anybody you want, so
yeah, TBC on that one. Yeah, like that said, if we don't get top four, I would be delighted to see Villa get top four. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just something different. Like, we haven't seen it since the O'Neill days. And
I'd also love Arsenal winning the league. I would take that. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Something different. Break the monotony of City just dominating it all. But with Everton, if they were to finish 14th, is it time to consider Dyche to be one of the best Premier League managers?
I mean, you're not putting them up with Fergie or Pep or Guardiola.
I don't mean ever. I mean currently in the league.
Oh, sorry, yeah. And I realised I just said Pep and Guardiola there. He's that good. I'm thinking he's two managers. Yeah, in the Premier League, yeah, no, I think so. I think De Zerbi has a lot more pizzazz and smoke around him at the moment, obviously because of where they are, but and how at Newcastle. But yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to go against him. It's just the only thing I don't want Dyche turning into, and look, there's worse things to turn into than what I'm about to say, but kind of a Big Sam, I'll keep you up manager, because he's better than that, you know.
I don't think he will. I think he could eventually, but I could see him quickly becoming a Moyes at West Ham.
Yeah.
That kind of going, do you know what? You're not going to win the league with us, but you could make a very average squad slightly better.
Yeah.
Just by pure will of baldness. Like, from everything that we've seen from previous players talking about him, he seems to just have this real relationship with the players, and on a human level is just a good bloke. And like we saw from when he was out of a job doing the podcasts and all that kind of stuff, he was just a dude. I really enjoyed listening to him, and I think players in a position like Everton are going to buy into that. I don't think a United would. I don't think a Chelsea would. I don't think a Newcastle would, because Newcastle are now getting flair players. And I think Dyche is one of these lads that, yeah, he'll sign a Maxwell Cornet, or he'll have these kind of players that are slightly sexier. But give him nuts and bolts, and he will make a team greater than the sum of its own parts.
Absolutely. And like, you know, he's, I think, one of the last of the old school managers out there. I was listening to, I think it was Peter Crouch podcast recently. He was talking about Sean Dyche, and basically what Dyche does, in his training routine is, they all wear the GPS vests, the bras, whatever you want to call them. And, it's all sports science focused now. But one day a week, that goes out the window, and Dyche gets his own day where he's like, no, we just run and we do it my way. And the sports science goes out the window and the load management goes out the window. And I kind of love that about them. And I think that kind of old school manager feeds into their kind of current success, because looking at the breakdown of their home and away wins, 57% of their wins this season have been away. So it goes back to that, we're under siege, lads. We go here and we can beat anyone. Let's just give it a lash. And that if they just keep that attitude and bring that home record up a tad, I really don't see them having too many problems.
Oh, 100% agree. The only thing I will kind of pull you up on, which I find amusing more so than disagreeing with you, is that the difference between an old school manager now and a modern manager is how much you publicly buy in to the hype around sports science and that kind of stuff, because everybody's using, like, Big Sam is considered to be a dinosaur now, despite the fact he was the
godfather of it. Yeah,
exactly. Like, he was so stats driven at a time when nobody else was, but now he's considered a dinosaur because he doesn't live and die by it. So yeah, I think that's the difference. I think that's one of the things that's so underrated about Dyche in the Premier League, and it will carry him and keep him in jobs in the Premier League, because I think now it's undeniable that, like, after Burnley, there was that question mark over him, kind of going, is he actually really Premier League quality?
Yeah.
It's undeniable now, as far as I'm concerned. Like, to do what he's done, even if Everton were to falter and to go down now, the rise that they've had under his tenureship at this crucial and difficult period proves he can make a good job anywhere. And whilst it's not the style of football that many of us would actively look for, it's a solid works. And I think if we were to lose that in the Premier League, the league would become a little bit more boring.
100%. I think, look, he's a unique manager in the way that, like, you're never going to see him managing in Spain or France. Like, he's a very British manager, and I think he'll forever have a job somewhere between the Championship and the Premier League for as long as he wants. But I think you're right, and I think it goes back to your point that he is a guy that can just take average players and make them better. Somewhat of like a Harry Redknapp situation, or even, going back, like, he may not have had the best teams in the world, but Ian Holloway did it, Big Sam did it. There's so many managers like that. And they're like, I mean, it sounds stupid being like, oh, let's hire a manager that can just make them a slightly better. But, like, there's a lot of teams out there that, like, just need a little bit more of a push to. There's teams that are out there that are 12th every year is success, Oh,
100%.
And he's the perfect guy for that.
But, like, what's underrated about making it a little bit better, and it's not even about making the individual players a little bit better, it's about making the team better. That is, and Robbie or Nathan will probably correct me if I am wrong, but that was the real special thing about Ferguson, was, like, he could put Anderson in midfield with Raphael as a right winger and Carrick in centre back and make that a strong team. Whereas when you saw it with Wenger, he didn't quite have that same ability to do that when he had, like, Coquelin in midfield and Bentner up front and an injury-prone Diaby in midfield. Like, he couldn't quite get them to the next level.
Ferguson knew his soldiers, though. That was the thing.
Ferguson could win a Premier League with bloody Ji-sung Park playing left back. And Dyche can do the same.
Oh, but, like, Ji-sung Park, it's guys like him that win. Yeah, it's guys like him, John O'Shea, Johnny Evans. They're your guys. Like, every team needs them, and I think it goes again back to the framework or the kind of philosophy of a manager. Like, Fergie worked because everyone bought in, because you weren't allowed not buy in. If you hadn't bought in, you were gone. And I think Dyche rolls the same way.
Oh, absolutely. Less so in the kind of pushed on sense, but that kind of, like, prove everybody else wrong. And will they prove like the doubters wrong? I think so, and I think we'd all like to see it happen, because I think they're one of the last teams to not be relegated from the Premier League. So I think it's one that me and you're going to keep a close eye on. It's sure to be an entertaining one. They're kind of a little bit of a close to home team for me now, because it kind of really reminds me of Sunderland back in the day. So I'm rooting for you, Everton. Come on, Dyche. But that's us for this episode. This has been the Not Opponent Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social, and we'll be back on the next episode.
I'm not into podcasts.
I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again.
What a hit! Back of the net.